most difficult part of the encounter with my son was that he did not want me to return home alive, but for the amulet and charms given to me by the priest, I will not be here to tell this story.
Some years ago, Mrs. Susan Ago, a 62-year-old woman, lost her son in a controversial circumstance. Mrs. Ago lives in Nsukka, which was about an hour's drive from Amala Igazi community. If you watch this video to the end, you will find out why Amala community is an important part of this story. Heartbroken, Mrs. Ago was determined to unravel the mystery surrounding the cause of the death of her son, whom she described as the jewel of her life. And after undergoing all the rituals, she embarked on a journey to the land of the dead, where she was reconnected with her dead son, who would not only reveal the identity of those behind his untimely death, but was unwilling to allow her to return to the land of the living. What happened next is not for the faint-hearted. But if you think that you are courageous enough to know the outcome of this story, then stick to the end of this video. Else, I strongly advise that you stop the video now. This is the story of Amala Igazi, an African community with a doorway to access the land of the dead. In most cultures, there is a strong belief that when someone dies, the person loses contact with the living. But for the people of the Amala Igazi community, such belief seems not to hold much water. Hidden away somewhere in Ilogu, Nigeria, Amala Igazi seems to be living in a world of its own. A community where the living and the dead coexist and communicate frequently. If you enjoyed true African stories, then you should watch this video to the end. Subscribe to my channel, hit the like button and share this video to enable the algorithm to recommend this video to other lovers of African story. The people of Amala believe strongly in Igbo mythology that is anchored on the concept of the existence of three different but related worlds of the universe: the world of the living, the world of the unborn, and the world of the dead. Every member of the Amala community believes that life must pass through these three worlds. During conception, the unborn is said to leave his abode and be conceived by a woman, and is then born into the world of the living, where the child grows and lives until death beckons and proceeds to the world of the dead. And upon death, the spirits of the deceased proceeds and returns to the ancestral world where it originally came from. Out of the three worlds, the world of the living is the only phase that is physical, but has its fate determined by the spirit worlds. The Igbos and the Amala people strongly believe that this earth is not a permanent abode for mankind, and that everyone must die someday to leave this world. But what distinguishes the Amala people from the rest of the world is that they have powers and the ability to communicate with the dead, even years after they must have departed from this world. Amala is the home to some of the most powerful witch doctors and traditional healers in the southeastern part of Nigeria, whose exploits include the display of some African most potent voodoo which have been preserved from generation to generation. Amala, otherwise known as the land of the dead, is believed to be a place where the dead still lives and can be contacted by the living after specific rites are performed by the presiding priests. Every year, especially in June or July, during the Onwa-Sa masquerade festival, a special festival of the Amala people, some of the villagers go to a place called Ogo. Ogo is believed to house the dead in the community and beyond. On the appointed day of the journey to the land of the dead, many villagers and even visitors who wish to see, speak and hear from their dead loved ones will gather at the market square. The faint-hearted amongst them will send their messages across to their loved ones in the land of the dead through the strong-hearted who are willing to embark on the journey to the land of the spirit, a journey that may come with severe consequences. In return, these people await in anticipation for responses from their dead ones, especially those they believe didn't die of a natural cause. The journey to the land of the dead is guided strictly by some set rules and of course made possible through some powerful African spell. The journey usually starts by 2 p.m. on the appointed day and they must return by 2 a.m. the following day, but that is on one condition. The condition is that provided all things go well in the spirit world. But if for any reason they fail to make it back to earth by 2 a.m., then they must utilize the next and last window, which opens by 10 a.m. 8 hours after the first window of return. Even at that, missing the 2 a.m. window is not without consequences, as in most cases, those who miss the window are either bewitched with spiritual attacks, struck with madness, or afflicted with a form of deformity for life. That is why in Amala community, there is always a big celebration when a successful return from the land of the dead is recorded. According to an Igbo myth, the world is divided into 3 dimensions: the land of the unborn, the land of the living, and the land of the dead. While the world of the living is the physical part of the 3 dimensions, the others are spirit realms. According to Mr. Nwodo, one of the indigents of the Amala community, the community is divided into Amala Ma, also known as Amala of the dead, and Amala itself, which is part of the land for the living. In his words, the people believe that those who died are not without a form of life. They are living but dead, or could best be described as the living dead. The land of the dead in Amala is populated exclusively by those who had died. These living dead live their life thereafter inside a sacred hill called Ilogu, which means King of Hills in Igbo language. People who want to visit their dead loved ones can go to Ilogu exclusively with the permission of the presiding village priests, as not all village priests are licensed to perform the necessary rituals. To embark on the mission of communicating with the dead, the priests must first sanctify the visitor with rituals for the encounter, which first begin with inquiring from the dead if the visitor is allowed to visit. Sometimes they say the dead person may not be interested in seeing the said visitor, and any attempt to disregard this warning is met with serious consequences. The visit to the land of the dead must have a reasonable purpose. For instance, a visitor may want to inquire about something from the dead, and in most cases, the visitor's most common purpose is to ascertain the cause of death of their loved ones. However, visits to Ilogu are only for specific days in the Igbo market day calendar. If the visitor's reason for the visit is to inquire about the cause of death, it is required that the visitor goes to Ilogu with a valuable personal item of the dead relative, which they will deposit at a designated spot and which will be picked up by the relative before any communication is established. And one of the most important of all rules of the encounter between the living and the dead is that there must not be any open display of emotions, such as crying. The living does not cry in the land of the dead. It is believed that the dead could become agitated, disappear, or even bring harm to the visitor if there is any form of emotion. Interestingly, the visitor may likely see images of some living persons who are close to death and dying, but most importantly, every aspect of the encounter must remain confidential. Visitors to Ilogu are not allowed to relay whatever they witnessed during the visit to anyone for whatever reasons, or the consequences may be there and punishable by death. Some years ago, Mrs. Susan Agu, a 62-year-old woman, lost her son in a controversial circumstance. Mrs. Agu lived in Nsukka, which was about an hour's drive from Amala. Heartbroken, she was determined to unravel the mystery surrounding the death of her son, whom she described as the jewel of her life. And after undergoing all the rituals, she was reconnected with her dead son, who not only revealed the identity of those behind his untimely death, but was unwilling to allow her to return to the land of the living. However, since she was inoculated against death, she was able to free herself and return home after handing 2 items, a torchlight and a machete, to her son. The torchlight, according to her, was for him to find his killers, and the machete for revenge against his killers. After her return, here is what Mrs. Agu has to say.
The most difficult part of the encounter with my son was that he did not want me to return home alive, but for the amulet and charms given to me by the priest, I will not be here to tell this story. However, I have no regrets despite a season of nightmares, bad dreams and traumas that I have had to deal with for over 10 years now, and there are several other sides of the story that I cannot talk about because of the oath I took.
To this very moment, the Amala community still prides itself as the land of the living and the dead, and it is open to receive any visitor who intends to reconnect with their dead loved ones? Have you missed any of your dead loved ones that you would do anything to have to speak or see them once again? Then you should consider trying the Amala route. But before you embark on that journey, please like and share this video and subscribe to my channel for more African stories. I wish you success on your journey. Thank you.